left unsaid. Days that can't be counted by the time till rent. Tomorrow's just another like the one that comes next. The corner of the highway that leads to the job, at the desk by the boss with the elegant watch. The tick of the clock and the tick of the clock mark the moments till the ticking stops.
Tania Richard, welcome to the podcast.
Kelly Leonard. I'm so delighted.
Well, you sort of tilted at this in our correspondence. So reading your memoir was a surreal experience. You are someone I've known for over 30 years. That's correct. Yeah.
Yes.
But not nearly to the level of detail, intimacy, and vulnerability that comes out in your book.
Yes.
And you have stories about your time at Second City and other Chicago theatrical institutions that don't always reflect the kind of enlightened, equitable, and inclusive behavior and events that we wish they might.
Sure.
All that being said, I couldn't help but think of a line that I use all the time from Urban Yalom, who's an existential psychologist, who once said, "Sooner or later, you have to give up the hope for a better past."
Oof. Yes.
What's the...
Starting on a light note.
No, we're not going to start a light note. So, I mean, you wrote this book for a reason, and yes. I think that, I don't know, I mean, you know, for those of us who've been through a lot, what I certainly recognize, and the scientific literature backs this up, is writing it down is really good and useful. There's, you know, that's it. They don't always expect that stuff to be published, but, you know, I did it, and you're doing it now, and I imagine there's catharsis and you know, other things going on, just making this act public.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I have a really bad habit of having something really consequential happen in my life, and then not within a very long time writing about it, and then I do something extra cute. I go ahead and perform it. So, for example, a few years back, well, now 2011, my parents died within 8 months of each other. And there was many complications and nuances to that story, including my mother's dementia, finding out things like, oh, they'd been divorced since 1990. And never told anybody. And so I proceeded to write a solo show and perform it within 8 months of both of them passing, and all of these revelations come out. What I've come to realize is that is how I process my life, is through the process of writing, and then because I'm a performer, through the process of telling it aloud. And so same thing happened here. I finally have moved through this experience of writing the memoir, but midway through the memoir, I was getting a little antsy, and I was like, I want to be in conversation with this piece. I want to learn about the piece. I want this writing process, which is so isolating, to become more of a dialogue. So I turned it into a solo show. And while I was finishing the memoir, and now it's its own entity as a solo show, which I'll be performing in the Lookout series at Steppenwolf, October 3rd and 4th. So it's
Perfect.
A bit of an illness. It's a bit of a sickness, but
yeah, maybe not. I mean, I think that, you know, look, if you look at the field we're in,
right,
this idea of why theater, and it is a reflection of the human condition. It's a finding a way for us to tell stories, and so I don't think that's wildly weird at all. And then I had a guest on the podcast recently who talked about the need for us to dance with our ancestors. And I really liked that phrase. And because a dance doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be discordant at times. And this stuff is complicated. And I mean, I didn't know you lost your sister. But what didn't surprise me about that, and I bet you remember this moment that I'm going to bring up, which is after Nora died, I think it was my first day back at the office, and I'm in the mezzanine, and I see you, and all you do is come to me and hold me. That was it. And it was the exact right thing to do. And now in reflection, I'm like, oh, because she knew the right thing to do.
Wow. And now's the point where I burst into tears.
It's okay. It wouldn't be the first time on this podcast.
Well, here's the thing, Kelly. You are one of my favorite people. And you have impacted my life more than more than, you're in the top tier because you brought me to Second City and you believed in me to the point where in the audition process, didn't make it the first round for the touring company, but you offered me free classes. And at one point to go through the beginners program. And then at one point I was feeling a little overwhelmed because part of it was I was supposed to, help in the office or something. And I schedule wise was feeling overwhelmed. I'm like, I think I have to drop the classes. I don't think I can do this anymore. And you're like, screw the classes, screw the office stuff, keep going. And I did. And, you brought me into a world I never really imagined. I auditioned for Second City because there was a call on the equity hotline to audition for, I was like, sure, I could improvise. Point being, you have meant so much to me in all of these years, you and Anne. And Anne was my first director at Second City. And what you experienced and how you let us all in during that is one of the more moving things I've ever witnessed. And so I love you. And when I saw you, there aren't words,
No.
And yes, I more and more, the older I get, realize how profoundly the loss of my sister has impacted me. And yes, I feel that pain for others on a deep level. So I'm so touched that you remember that. And yeah, there were no words.
I think too, what people who haven't gone through something like that, because we all lose parents, and that's often complicated. These are other kinds of losses. My brother Carrie just the other day said, "Hey, I'm going to send this to you. I found an old like a streaming interview that was done with my dad. So it's like from 13 years ago when he was still alive." But he goes, "But that's not the reason I'm saying it to you. Is look in the comment section, and there was just a comment from Eleanor." 2926 saying that's my grandpa and I miss him. and it was beautiful. And it's funny because I was telling it to our friend Tyler and he was like, oh no. And I go, no, it's not no. I loved it. It's a sign of her in the world, right?
Yes.
And I remember my therapist her saying, like, a physicist will tell you that your loved ones, there's elements of them that are here that never leave. So I think all of that is something that just you don't know unless you go through it, and I don't want you to know it.
I don't want anyone to know it either, and I believe so. I'm more and more older and older that I get, realizing that she's always been here.
Yeah.
And that part of why she's always been here is because I can't stop writing about her in the things that I create. She shows up every time without intention. And I just recently heard a quote about that, which is essentially that is why our loved ones never leave us. If they only leave us if we stop remembering them, if we stop talking about them. And because I'm not the type of person who is always like, my sister who passed away, my sister, right? But I am the person who has consistently throughout all of my work written about her, literally and figuratively. And now I really realize, oh, that's how I've kept her here.
Yeah. All right. In 7th grade, you attempted to use reverse psychology, like an idiot, to get the role you wanted in your school's production of Peter Pan.
I sure did.
That didn't work, did it?
No, it did not. So I went to this all-white grade school in the all-white suburb of Western Springs, Illinois, just out of Chicago. And this amazing theater teacher appeared. She was also the math teacher. She came in her first year for the 7th grade under the sort of like the whiff of, she was an actress in New York and was all very exciting. And so she decided that she was going to put on Peter Pan. But I also knew she just wasn't that into me. She just did not really care for me. And I was like, how am I going to get this woman to see that only I can play the role of Toodles in Peter Pan? And so I became convinced that if I told her I would not mind, it was a light touch,
Yeah.
that I wouldn't mind playing the role of Nana the dog in Peter Pan, who is, an actor on all fours, crawling around at the beginning of the play, shepherding the kids off to sleep. That somehow she would be like, what a team player. I have to give her the role of Toodles. And guess what? When you tell someone you wouldn't mind playing the role nobody else wants to play, they're going to give you that role.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was cast as Nana, the dog.
And she also started the drama club. Was
She started it, yes.
And you say that's your origin story, is that drama club, because it never happened.
Well,
I mean, it did, but nothing came out of it.
Right?
You
know what came out of it is my understanding that I was a performer.
Oh,
and so there's the story about the acting exercise that we do in the club, like the after school thing, and we're supposed to imagine that we're stranded in a cabin, and I had this kind of breakthrough moment where I like fully felt as if I was in this world where I was trapped and it was cold outside and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do and thought we were going to freeze to death. And it was a real breakthrough moment. All of the other students saw it like, wow, Tania really became this person in that world. And she wasn't having it. She was displeased just because, again, she had this attitude around me, this thing about me. And so while Drama Club got canceled, while we never did the play Peter Pan, I discovered my superpower, which is to make believe, right? Or to believe under imaginary circumstances. And it serves me very well.
I don't know if you know. Do you remember when Alan Arkin did a series of workshops here? This is way long ago.
No.
This is like Andy Cobb on the resident stage or whatever.
Okay.
I remember, so there was these daytime workshops, and it's Alan Arkin, right? This is a big deal. And Anne, my wife, your former director, was in this workshop and really absorbed because we were in such awe of Alan. And so Anne did a scene with him, and she cried in the scene. And Alan stopped the workshop, was rattled by it, and just is like, we got to take 10, and 10 became there's no more workshop.
What the heck?
Just couldn't handle it. Just was so thrown by someone having that sort of like trying to be authentic in the moment, and it was like, but I mean, actually, we've had many wonderful encounters with Alan Arkin later, and he's someone who goes through it. At one point I can say this now. He was like, I need a bunch of email addresses from alumni who I need to say sorry to.
Oh my gosh! So he was going through it. Yeah,
he was going through it.
I mean, the thing with this teacher is as a
you almost
kid,
slipped there.
I almost did. Yeah. As a kid, you know when an adult is jealous of you. Yeah. And I also introduced the thread and possibility that there was bias, and that there was, as a Black student in an all-white school, throughout my entire educational career, I came to realize being the other in that situation, it wasn't the students who made it difficult for me. It was my teachers. Mm-hmm. It was the adults. Mm-hmm. And I would walk into their classrooms and they would already have an unconscious bias toward me. Mm-hmm. And it then affected how they treated me. And there was adultification as a young Black woman. There was dismissiveness. There was power plays. And this was happening in ways that significantly impacted me. And so that's the aspect of this teacher that, it's hard to prove, but I also know it deep in my bones.
Yeah, well, and also we're of an age when, it was not like it is right now. And not saying it's that much better. There's other issues, but hands down, the worst and best story in this book is when your high school, Nazareth Academy, which is how much percentage white? There's two Black students, right?
2 Black students.
That's it. So they decide to do the whiz.
They do. Yes.
What?
Yeah, it's so funny. So for those who may not know, The Wiz is the all-Black adaptation of The Wizard of Oz. And guess what? That's the point. It's meant to celebrate Black culture through this story we all know. Dorothy is black. Everyone's black. I went to an all-white school. So our theater department decided they were going to do The Wiz. And at first I thought, well, clearly.
You're going to be Dorothy.
It's my destiny.
Yes.
I soon discovered, no, there was no intention in casting me as Dorothy. In fact, they cast me as Eveline the Witch, which, that has its own, and yes, I found myself cast in the all-white production of The Wiz, which is forever a punchline if I ever tell the story. But of course, internally, it did great harm. Yeah. At the same time that this is a teacher who I adored, who I consider to be a mentor. So there's so many things that come out of that story in terms of like intention versus impact. I know for a fact this teacher didn't choose this to cause me any harm, but harm was caused just because I'm like, I can't be the freaking Dorothy in a story where everybody's supposed to be black. What in the world? So, yes, but it's also hilarious.
Yeah. You show a lot of grace to that teacher, which is lovely, but also accountability is a thing too.
It is a thing.
So I want to talk about Steppenwolf because your experience there is amazing, and I will start it with this, which was Neil Flynn, who you know, who was in Greenco, a company you almost were in.
Yes.
And he also performed at Steppenwolf quite a bit. And he told me the story once, and this was all about how Martha Lavey, the beloved late Martha Lavey, has no sense of humor. He said to her, he goes, "Oh yeah, no, I'm going to be starring in my all-black one-person showboat." And she took a beat, and she goes, "Oh, is that one of your lies?" And he's like, "Well, we call it bits, but I guess." Technically, it's a lie.
That is so Martha. I love that. She is a person who would absolutely call improv bits a lie. That is brilliant.
She's not technically wrong either.
She's not technically wrong.
God love her. So you're 23 years old.
Yeah.
And your first gig is Steppenwolf main stage?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, as I say it in the book and as I just know it to be, it's like if anybody came to me at that point and was like, I'm 23 and I'm going to be in a show at Steppenwolf, I'd slap them. On top of that, it was with the Grammy Award-winning ensemble Ladysmith Black Mambazo, who was on Paul Simon's Graceland and super famous in South Africa. On top of that, it had John Mahoney from Frasier and Zakes Mokai, one of my favorite actors of all time, K. Todd Freeman. And so, and then it went to Australia, where I proceeded to have 3 weeks of the most fun I've ever had in my life. And then it went to Broadway. So it's pretty much one of the more obnoxious, like, just out of college stories that could be told, and it's mine.
But what's great about it too, and Eric Simonson directed, who was Anne's ex-husband's roommate for a long period of time.
All right, okay.
It's such a small world.
Oh yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, we all know each other. But I mean, so ensemble. This idea of ensemble, and it's so rooted in Second City, and it is rooted in Steppenwolf, and it is not unconnected in that Sheldon Patinkin, who was your director, here did all the original workshops for Steppenwolf, recognizing that this was a special thing that Chicagoans have. Looking Glass has it as well. Right. So I love that you got that experience there and here so early in your career, because clearly it's a marker for you.
It's a marker for me. It spoiled me rotten, like to the core, because also my experience at Second City, I got all the best of Second City.
Yeah, you did.
I mean, that's another pretty obnoxious story, right? So I happened to audition to understudy because Nancy Carell, who I was covering, was out of town. I auditioned. Sheldon Patinkin chooses me to be one of the understudies for the main stage, and then Fran Adams is leaving, and I get to go in for 6 weeks. So I get this and I wasn't even technically in any of the touring companies yet, and I was taking the classes that you offered me. So it was this crash course of Second City, and I got the best of it. And with Steppenwolf, yes, I got that Chicago approach to work combined with the fact that it was the first time in my life I was surrounded by a predominantly Black cast, which really ultimately ended up being the first time in my life I ever was in a space with a group of Black people, and we were the majority. So they were mind-bending, mind-shifting, life-changing experiences.
So you also, your parents were Haitian.
Yes.
And both medical professionals.
Right.
So that part of your story also, especially as we exist in the year 2025 in August,
Yeah.
It's an immigrant tale. It's complicated. There are so many yous, right, at play here.
Yeah.
And this is something I'm just interested in, generally speaking, is this idea of we're sort of taught that there's one authentic you, and it's like if life teaches you anything, it's that that's not true.
Right. Right.
And I think this is what the book sort of, to me, charts, because you're one character in the book, the Tania who's writing the book, but there's all these other characters in the book that are parts of you as well. And so it makes up this sort of beautifully complex, contradictory, like, because you are also someone who, this is one of the things I love about you, which is you do not take two Fs. However, you are also a kind human being who walks the world.
Thank you.
So that's not a combination I think people are used to.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because this book, that when I finally stumbled across how I wanted to structure it, which was using the conceit of each chapter is a play that I was in, wrote, saw at the sort of crucial periods that I cover in the chapter. So it's how my life has happened in and around theater, but it's not a book. It's not like a theater book as much as it is. I use that as the structure. And along with that, I can take it one step further, and it's the multiple roles that I've played in my life, because when I grew up, I was not rooted in seeing myself reflected because I was the only Black girl. So that it took me a while, right? To figure out what my role is and the role that is most comfortable to me. In the meantime, I tried on all these different roles where I would find pieces of myself, but it took a while before I could kind of feel as if now I know when I bring myself to something, I'm bringing my whole self and my authentic self. So yeah, I think that's a universal thing. I think it's particularly pronounced in the fact that during my developmental years, I didn't have the opportunity to do that by seeing other people around me who were like me. I was always an other. And it wasn't being an other under the surface like we all feel. It was visible because it was the color of my skin.
That's the difference, right? And also, it's not like your parents were having like race conversations with you.
No. My mother is a person who sort of lived in her own beliefs. What she needed to believe, she believed in the moment. And so, according to her, she never experienced any racism in this country. Which is adorable. Now she was a fair-skinned woman with an exotic Haitian accent. So she definitely probably experienced some privilege because of that, right? Because she was and she had status.
Yeah.
My father was a richer-hued man, and he was a man in America. And he had told us stories about, he drove a Mercedes, his beloved Mercedes, being pulled over blocks away from our house in Western Springs, the suburb, because they thought he stole his own car, right? So, but even still, those conversations or those stories he would tell didn't come until we were really more adults. We never talked about that sort of thing when we were children. And so I wasn't given a lot of context for the things that were happening to me in school when I was like, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. It doesn't sound right, but I don't know what this is. And it took years of hindsight for me to be able to go, oh, this is what this was. And you know, that's just, my parents didn't lead with that. And whether that was, you know, coming to a country as immigrants, trying to make it as doctors, maybe that's what they had to do. I don't know exactly what their path was to not make that a defining thing in their lives, but that's what it was.
I'm assuming as a parent, you parent differently with regard to that issue.
Yes, my children are, you know, they're very, very in their skin as biracial.
Yeah.
Humans in the world. The conversations happen all the time in our household. They bring things to me and are able to point things out to me that maybe I, because of my conditioning, might miss, and they can remind me. But it is one of my proudest things, I would say, as a parent. Number one, that they are comfortable having this conversation about race, that they know that I will protect them from harm, and, you know, that I will fight for them, right?
Yeah. I also love, I don't know if you experience this, but like, it is not unusual for Nick, my son, to say to me, don't say that again. Like, you can't say it.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
I mean, I have to say, I am sort of hyper aware of all of that sort of thing, so that may not happen a lot, but I do just love when they come back to me and they're like, and then Mom, this person tried to do this. And I was like, that's this, that, this, and the other. And I'm like, well, excuse me. I guess my work is done.
Yeah, that's right.
But I was going to, the final thing that I'm sort of most proud of as a parent is my children know who I am. They know me. And there was a lot of secrecy with my parents. And yeah, I didn't know how old my mom was. She wouldn't tell me. You know, that's how deep her sort of private persona was, even though she was at home, you know. And my kids know everything about me that's appropriate, and I'm really proud of that too. But that was all part of that journey.
We found out that my mom was older than my dad at an anniversary dinner. Like, Ann and I were out with my parents, and it was like, oh yeah, no, because we always said the oldest person is the one who should have the most respect. So your dad was going to be the oldest, and then it was the. I'm like, you've been lying about your age for 30 years to me.
Isn't that wild?
A whole different generation. And
it's a whole different generation.
And my parents were very aware and in the mix, right? So like they were very close to Louis Bellson and Pearl Bailey, and that was a very famous interracial marriage before that was like a thing. And I remember having dinner with them and having like really interesting conversations. But even still,
yeah.
You know, it's after my dad passed, we were going through his things, and I had known that he had like left the Army. I didn't know he got dishonorably discharged.
Get out of here.
Yep.
Whoa. Well, that's how we found out about my parents' divorce. Is after my mother, we had to put her in the nursing home. My father was in the hospital. We're going through papers in the house, and I stumble across divorce papers from 1990.
Did they stay together in the house?
They stayed together because what happened was, within a very short time period after the divorce, my sister passed away, and then my father had a stroke. And through circumstance, and they, for the rest of their lives together, conducted themselves like a married couple. Okay. So it wasn't so much like, you know, we're trying to get over on anybody. I think they just were like, never mind. But they had made it official.
Oh my God, that's wild. Second City thing. Todd Stashwick, our mutual friend, he was the one who sort of got you like.
He sure is.
Yeah. Did you know the other recommendation he gave, and it was to Jason Sudeikis around Ted Lasso?
No way.
So Jason couldn't cast one of the roles, and Todd's like, you should talk to my friend Hannah Waddingham.
Oh, get out of here.
Yes, and Jason's like, who? And he's like, no, you should talk to her. And of course, The
Well,
rest is
Todd
history.
Stashwick, I tell you, there's a story in the book because so and I went to the same college, and then he was always like, "I'm going to do Second City," and we're like, "Who, what, where?" And because we're all like drama nerds, and
Yeah, right.
when I decided to audition, I called him, and he gave me a crash course over the phone, over a payphone, about what improvisation was.
Basically told you to yes and.
He's like, yes, and it doesn't have to be funny. Be in the moment. Go, you know.
Wow.
But I'm forever grateful because I'm so grateful for my time at Second City. It was a golden age when we were.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know?
So Carell was on stage and he taught you.
Steve Carell was my teacher. Then it was even my generation of folks. It was Todd Stashwick, Neil Flynn, Tina Fey, all of them. Amy Poehler was just coming in. Adam McKay. I mean, Nancy Carell. It was an outrageous time, and we were all just a bunch of kids.
Totally.
And I'd be like, wow, these guys are all really good, but I didn't know they were all going to become like the Mount Rushmore and most famous comedians in the country. It's a trip, and I just got to be there at that time.
I loved that you talked about how kind Scott Adsit was to you.
Yes.
Which, and Scott, for those, he was Pete on 30 Rock. He's been in a million other things. He is, I think for everyone, he's the actor's actor at Second City.
Yeah.
You're like, you could do anything, man.
He could do anything.
And he was so rough on me as when I became the producer of Second City.
Oh, really?
But like correctly. Like
Sure.
I was 26. I mean,
Yeah,
like I had,
yeah.
so in later years, we've talked about it. He's like, I did that for a reason because I care about you. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I didn't really know that then, but he also like, that's not what he needed to do with you. So
No.
the idea that, again, that ability to switch,
Yes.
because we're all different, we all have different needs at different times,
Yes.
is such a gift that I wish I had latched onto earlier in my life. I eventually got there, but that's another thing I think theater can teach us with the roles that we take.
The thing with Scott is he is like, by definition, a gentle man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he took me in, this kid who like stumbled onto the main stage at Second City, and just was so kind and appreciative and acknowledged the very strange thing I was doing. I remember my first show that I did, and afterwards he was talking to some friends, and I walked by, and he made the point. He's like, this girl came in and covered for frickin' Fran Adams. This is her first show. It's like, and just so kind and funny, and then a brilliant actor, which is why he's such a good improviser.
So in a moment, I'm going to ask you for a yes and story. Before we do that, towards the end of your book, you're talking about COVID, and this is very much a thing of the generations in theater. And you and I have not talked about this. I know we haven't, but it's the same epiphany. And it was an epiphany I had here when we were just starting to come back. George Floyd had happened, COVID.
Yeah.
We're coming back to Second City. It was like Pompeii because we all left for a year.
Yeah.
And came back to these offices. And I remember thinking that this phrase that we lived and died by, which is the show must go on, was also the other side of that coin was it was used by basically the rich and the powerful to get people to work when they were sick.
That's right. The show must go on. Whoever came up with that was a producer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That wasn't an actor's idea. No. And it comes out of the dynamic of we just want to be on stage. You know what I mean? At the core, yes, we want to make money, and yes, but we love to perform. And so that was ultimately in some ways used against us. And what I learned from the cast of Schoolgirls, or the African Mean Girls play that I did at the Goodman, it was a younger generation of performers, and they intrinsically and inherently understood their value and understood that they deserved to be treated in a way where they were humans first. And it just taught me everything in terms of how we needed to move forward. And like asking for accommodations, understanding that and that's a culture now, at least, that you can call out sick, that it's not considered like cool or valiant or brave to go on stage hacking up a lung every time you step off. You know what I mean? So yeah, that I'm grateful to have seeing that arc happen, and then to be a part of like making sure people stay true to it, because we could slide back very easily, you know.
Totally, because every other industry has, and probably in ours as well. All right, we always end the podcast with a yes and story. So what is the yes and story that you were going to provide?
The yes and story I think I'll provide is the story, my love story with my husband Bill, who we met on a dating app, and I had said I wanted to date someone who didn't have children, because I thought, what am I going to do with someone who has children? But he reached out anyways, and I was like, what the heck? It's practice. Yes, I'm going to go on this first date. And the and became realizing I wanted to spend my life with somebody who I never would have expected, and becoming a stepmother, which I never would have expected. And then having children, which I never would have expected. So I would say my greatest yes and story is just the story of falling in love with my husband, having my babies, having my stepkids, and the happily ever after. Yes, and can bring you happily ever after.
Oh, I love that. That's so fantastic. The book is called Black Girl from a White Suburb, Finding My Light, Using My Voice. Tania Richard, you're the best.
Kelly, you're the best. Thank you.